Welcome to Aging Gracefully, where growing older is celebrated, appreciated, and respected. I'm so fortunate I'm able to interview the most awesome, inspiring, and unstoppable aging adults and advocates with the best information and resources available to us today as we are all growing older. And today, I have my friend Robb Koscho here with me. Thank you, Robb, for being here on Aging Gracefully. And today we're going to talk a lot about kayaking and water safety with kayaking. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So the first thing I always do is ask the age. So do you mind telling how old you are, Robb?
I'm 48. I just turned 48 June 2nd.
Oh, happy birthday
Thank
then.
you. Thank you.
48 years old with a beautiful wife and a 2-year-old.
Yes, a 2-year-old. Yeesh.
Little Josephina, right?
Yes.
Yes. So you are very busy, obviously, with the family and that. So let's go into a little bit of history and then we'll kind of bring it up into kayaking. I know you're very well educated and you can help educate me and the viewers on that.
Absolutely.
Let's start with, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Lorain, Ohio. Lived there most of my life. Started on the west side. Now I live on the east side.
All right. And we talked about education a little bit too. And I loved different types of stories. So for you, college has not been something that you feel got you to where you're at now, right?
Yeah, it allowed me to explore a few different majors, a few different career paths that I thought I wanted to go on, whether it was accounting and actually pursuing accounting, saying, okay, yeah, no, not so much, whatever. And then to now being able to apply everything I've wanted to do without a college degree is kind of interesting.
I think it's wonderful. I love to hear a mix of stories like that because I really think so many times it really depends on what's inside the person and what they're going to do and the avenues that they take. So you really did a lot in restaurant business.
Yeah, 25 years. I just completed. Yay.
Right. But you always enjoyed the water?
Loved ever since I was a little kid. We had a creek behind our house. I learned about frostbite. I learned about frogs. I learned about crayfish. I learned how water is just an amazing thing, and I spent so much time. And then as I got older and I saw Lake Erie and just pools and all of it, I would be in water all day, every day.
I'm with you on that. I think those of us who grow up on the north coast of Ohio have such appreciation for water. Being on Lake Erie, it's wonderful.
I love bringing out-of-towners and showing them Lake Erie, and they're like, what ocean is this? I'm like, no, this is Lake Erie. They're like, wow.
That's so true. People in other parts of the country don't realize you can't see the other side of our lake.
It's a great lake.
Yeah. A veritable sea, yes. All right, so 7-8 years ago, you started with kayaking. Tell me, bring us all up to speed with.
Yeah, so I started kayaking. I dabbled with it once or twice when I was living out in Rhode Island 15 plus years ago. I fell in love with it immediately. I've been doing it ever since. About 8 years ago, I started scribbling down ideas for, and not necessarily a business, but more of a club. I wanted a place for new kayakers to meet experienced kayakers. I wanted a place to maybe run trips. You know, we would do group trips. I based it all off of a ski club that I belonged to. And I utilized a lot of their principles and bylaws and rules. And so to introduce ourselves, we decided we were going to have a cleanup of the Black River. And from day one, we said it was the first annual. We knew we were going to do it every year.
Okay.
But it was just a way to say, this is who we are. We want to introduce ourselves to the community. And we thought we were going to have 40, 45 people come out and kayak and pick up some stuff, and then we'd go for lunch afterwards. We registered 250 people, pulled 6.6 tons of trash, including 110 tires, and that completely rewrote what I wanted to do.
And this was in a day?
Yeah, it was from 9 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay, so then continue on. This is a great story.
Because of that, that completely rewrote what I wanted to do. It kind of took us away from kayaking. Even though we did do kayaking, we did kayak trips, guided trips, we did kayak instruction. My wife and I were both certified American Canoe Association instructors, and we have an adaptive endorsement, and we'll talk about that later.
Right.
But yeah, we just started with our own kayaks, using friends' kayaks, local livery kayaks, and it was just amazing that we were a competition, and they're like, here, just
The
go ahead.
liveries.
Yeah, to help us
Yes.
out, and it was such an amazing thing. I think everybody kind of knew we were on something magical, and with that cleanup, it caused us to, like I said, get away from kayaking. We got a fleet of kayaks, a trailer. We're a mobile rental unit, so we travel to different locations. We rent our kayaks. We do guided trips on the Black River, and then we use Lake Erie as our instruction. And we do some guided trips on Lake Erie as well. But then after that first cleanup, we were more involved in the stewardship side of things. We were going into schools, talking to youth groups and adult groups, and teaching them how their everyday actions affects all our waterways, both good and bad. And we would do something as simple as a 25-minute speech to a week-long program. And when we do a week-long program, we culminate that with a mini cleanup on their property.
Fantastic. And I know, back to the kayaks too, you come to this community at least once a week.
Absolutely. For this summer, we're here every Thursday. We're trying to be here every Saturday. We do have some scheduling conflicts that kind of prohibit us. This Saturday is one of those scheduling conflicts.
But you also do the guided sunset.
Yep, we have
tours,
sunsets, and
I think that's how I met you.
we met on one of the sunset trips. Those are available on. You can find them on the Avon Lake Park and Rec's website.
Right. Okay. So now your company is called Loco Yaks. It's you and your wife. And it's kind of had some different variations, as you mentioned, but now it's a nonprofit.
Yep, so we are, Loco Yaks is Lorain County Kayak and Paddle Sports Group. Loco Yaks is the official name. We are a 501c3 non-for-profit organization. And we work solely on grants, donations. It's something I never thought I'd create. I knew a lot about small business. I always worked for small business. So to have that was a great education. Once we started getting involved with the nonprofit, since day one, it's just been this learning curve, which is, I like to learn, so it makes that.
Well, and the beautiful thing is you're teaching everybody else. So while you've learned so much yourself, your whole mission is education and keeping people safe. So that's wonderful. And so let's talk about some of this too, because unfortunately, every year we see something in the news, on television, a terrible tragedy, someone out on the water. And definitely the Great Lakes are not like an inland lake. They're not like a river. Each source of water, I'm sure each one has its own advantages and then the
disadvantages.
And the
there's
scary
good and
stuff.
bad to everything
right.
in life. And it's not just kayakers. I mean, it's all water recreators. Whether it's something as simple as just, hey, I'm going to go for a swim. I'm going to go sit on this raft. I'm going to go out on this boat. I've been out on this boat 2,000 times. There's a lot of safety precautions that every different water user needs to apply. I mean, there's some similarities, but,
So let's take a novice who's just thinking, oh, maybe I will start kayaking. So let's start with, what ages do you think it's appropriate for kayaking?
I've got a 2-year-old.
I was
She's been
just
in a
gonna
kayak. Everything's appropriate with proper education, proper safety, proper knowledge. I see a lot of unsafe things, and that just really worries me. I try to educate people on the spot. A lot of people aren't really receptive to education, so there's that give and take. But I love talking kayaking. Whenever we're down renting, if anybody is interested in kayaking, they can come talk to me and pick my brain, because there's so many options of safety that you can do to make this such a great sport.
So you're saying somebody can talk specifically about their situation with you.
Absolutely.
So it could be of any age.
Absolutely.
Or maybe of the ages they're bringing along with them.
Absolutely. So when we rent, we have 2 kayaks that you can bring a smaller non-paddling child. As far as a child paddling, we say about 13 is a good age. They couldn't come by themselves. They would have to come with a parent up till they're 18. But as far as their abilities, usually 13 is a good sizable age for everything.
Should everyone have a life jacket on?
Everyone should have a life jacket. The law states something differently, but if you come and do, whether it's a guided trip or rent from us, you have to wear a life jacket. It's in our insurance, and it's just safety.
Right. Okay. And so back to ages, I have a lot of friends who are my age and older. What do you think? What do you think about seniors or?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's open to everybody. Once you start getting up in the years, I definitely recommend taking a lesson, excuse me, because there are paddling related injuries. Usually a shoulder is a big thing. So even with myself, I paddle a certain way. So I know when I'm starting to get tired, I know it's time to kind of wrap it up, because I don't want to have something just because I'm doing something sloppy.
So in other words, it might be fine for any age, but you still have to know the limitations, like how long you want to be out there.
Absolutely. I know my first couple paddles of the year, just my legs don't like being stuck in a weird position like that, so I crawl out of my kayak because my legs are numb. I have a sciatic condition, so I got to kind of move my legs around and twiddle my toes, and sometimes I have to just kind of do some things to get the blood going again. But again,
now you just mentioned this type of kayak that you have, so let's go to types of kayaks. Tell me about that.
Sure.
And how would we choose?
So if the first thing I ask is what you want to do, where you want to go, how do you want to use your kayak. There's very small, wide kayaks called whitewater kayaks. That's not really used around here. That's more eastern area, mountainous regions, more out west. You have a little bit longer than that, your 8 to 10 foot kayaks. They're short, they're wide. They've got a really open cockpit. Those are called recreational kayaks. Those are good for inland lakes like Finley Lake, ponds. Then the next size up, you have your 10 to longer boats. Those are your open water kayaks. Those are good for the local rivers, the lake. The longer ones are your sea, ocean kayaks.
And then some are made for 2 people. You call
Some are
them
made for 2 people.
tandem.
We call them tandems.
Someone just told me yesterday that they're trying a tandem with her husband was like doing a 3-legged race, where you
I
tie
had
the
to bite my
legs.
tongue when you said, what do you call tandems? Because in the industry, we call them divorce boats because of such the same reason as you're giving. Now to watch it, because you have to paddle it as a perfect team. If you're coming straight at me, I should see one paddle, not because the person in the back isn't paddling, but because both people are paddling like a team.
Okay, so both are on the same side at the same time.
Yes.
Good to know.
Relationship therapists should invest in some tandem kayaks. I'm very entertained by it. It's good stuff.
So let's say you're taking out a guided group. What are some of the things people might consider? Do some people get seasick?
I was just going to say yes. That's
Because I know that happened actually while we were out.
Yes, and I was just asked that question too. I chuckled when I was asked that question. Yes, please. Seasickness and kayaking, you can, I think, do the two together. I've heard of people taking Dramamine. I can't, swear by it. I've heard of some people just sucking on ginger candy. I can't say, but if you're going to come out on one of my trips, I need to know that kind of stuff because it just adds a new element of what I have to do of keeping everybody safe and getting everybody back on shore. I mean, we all want to go out and we want to go see the water and we want to get out on a kayak, but safety first and foremost is my primary concern. I can buy a new kayak, I can buy a new paddle, I can't buy a new person, and that's what I really care about.
Right, and I know you really are. On that guided trip, you were so careful trying to keep everybody together and that. And I think that was a challenging trip.
Anytime it's on Lake Erie, it's a challenge, because you're dealing with boats, you're dealing with jet skis, you're dealing with a lot of traffic. So, there's a lot of elements that are out of my control, so I can only control my safety as much as I can. And I hope and pray,
So tell me this, should people always go out with somebody else? Or what are the rules if, go ahead.
Yeah, that's such a double-edged sword question because, yes, you should always go out with somebody, but I understand timing and weather and coordinating, again, safety. File a float plan. Something as simple as a Facebook post, calling wife, husband, friend, relative, just saying, hey, I'm going out, this is where I'm going. If you really, I encourage to be safer, leave a little description in the window of your car of what kind of kayak, what you're wearing, what your life jacket looks like. So if you don't come back at an estimated time that you tell everybody that you're coming back, then the search and rescue parties now know what to look for. And always make that phone call that you're back on shore. I'm guilty of not making that phone call, and I kind of.
Okay.
That's a whole different conversation.
Right. Okay. So that makes sense. And then if we're out on Lake Erie, do you recommend staying pretty close? Again, you mentioned boats, jet skis, and I think we're kind of low visibility, especially if there's some waves, because you're pretty low in the water as opposed to it.
So again, that's a kind of a double-edged sword too as well. You do want to stay kind of close to shore, but all along this coast, whether it's Avon Lake, Sheffield Lake, Lorain, Vermilion, the coast changes, especially now that we've got higher water. There's some rocks that I know of that probably aren't going to be seeable because the lake levels are up so high. There might be some structures or things that, might not necessarily be as submerged. So, you don't want to take too close to the shore, but there's kind of a fine line. You really want to stay focused and see what's ahead of you and pay attention. Always watch the boat traffic, the powered traffic coming at you. You're sitting down in the water. It's a little tough for them to see down.
Right. Okay, how about your personal flotation device? Any recommendations for that? Types of life jackets?
Yeah, they make all different types of life jackets. Find one that fits and find one that feels comfortable. I see so many people walk up wearing a jet ski life jacket and I know that they're just going to be miserable the entire time because that's made for jet skis. Life jackets are made for specific uses. You want something that doesn't ride up.
They
You
might
want it to
even
be
have the raised back, right?
absolutely. There's some that's lower in the back. They make women specific.
Oh, they do, right. That actually have room for the bust.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then always you want to, the more straps that they have, the better, because you can really fine tune that. You want it to feel like somebody's giving you a bear hug when you cinch it down. And then when you sit down, they always ride in your face. You just kind of want to cinch those shoulder straps down if they have them. That'll help bring everything in.
Okay. Now, we just kind of touched on the adaptive kayaking a minute ago. Tell me about that, because it's really exciting that you're really working to bring kayaking to the masses, and to back up a little bit, not just like the big box stores you mentioned that are selling kayaks like crazy. Like, you're trying to bring it out in a safe way with everyone educated.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There's a lot of new people out there now. The sport has grown, but that doesn't mean they're educated.
Correct. The big box stores just kind of sell you whatever you say you want, whereas your more smaller privatized stores, they have knowledgeable staff that participate in those sports of what they're selling, so they know how to fit you and give you, the proper equipment. I understand that initial kayak investment is a big investment, but when you're spending, even if you try to take it the most economical way you can, you're still spending a lot of money. Spend a couple extra $100 to get you a little more proper equipment, to give you a fair chance at actually liking the sport. I've had people that bought on impulse and then rented from us, and first words out of their mouth was, "I should have waited."
Yeah.
We don't have super high-end equipment, but we've got above average equipment because we want people to love it as much as we do. We want people to rent from us 10 times and go out and buy their own kayak. It's not a great business plan, but I just want to, our mission statement is for all abilities, that we want people to experience kayaking. And so,
All right. So back into that, too,
Yeah.
the adaptive part.
Yeah, so like I said, my wife and I were American Canoe Association instructors, and in 2015 they had their inaugural Adaptive Paddling Sports Summit, and they had people all parts of the industry in it, where they make products or had programming or were occupational therapists or kayak instructors, and they brought us all together, and it really just impacted my life. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, just the minds, the engineers, how they're like, okay, I'm just going to do this. Or this person says, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to get you skiing. This is how we're going to get you biking. This is how we're going to get you climbing. And I just was in awe of all of it. And that's what I saw as the future for my business.
So you are learning how to not only help other people, but actually be able to teach to create instructors that can help people with disabilities.
Correct. So, like I said, my wife and I, we both have adaptive paddling endorsements, and we just received a grant through ODNR to purchase, to get our adaptive program really underway. And part of that grant, we just did a course to get other people the same accreditation that we did. And since we were having this going on, I thought I might as well become one of these instructor trainers and start going through the process. So now, working my way to be an instructor trainer in adaptive paddling.
Fantastic. So when we're talking about adaptive too, give me please a few examples of the kind of person who might think, well, I can't do this because whatever the problem is, but what is the difference in the kayaks, and what are the kinds of maybe disabilities that wouldn't really matter?
Sure. So our kayaks are a regular current design, 12-foot, and we have one tandem kayak that's a 14-foot, but it's a 12-foot kayak that you could buy at Backpacker's Shop, but it was ordered specifically through this company called Creating Ability that makes this line of adaptive products. And so what they did is they fit it with outriggers that go on the back that aid in keeping it from capsizing.
Okay,
There's
so-
a specially designed seat that you can adjust, so if someone in a wheelchair, depending on their level of stability, we can modify this chair to fit them and give them the structure that they need. If you have, we have hand adaptations, so if maybe you can't grab a paddle, or you can grab a paddle but you just don't have the strength, we've got a few different options. If you can only use one hand, or if you're missing an upper limb, we've got a specially designed paddle system for that. So really, there's a lot of thinking outside the box, and if we don't have access to it immediately, there may be phone calls that we can make to,
And you can find it.
to spurn some creativity.
And I remember you telling me that getting in the kayak is not the hard part. It's the getting out.
And that applies to everybody.
Right.
I mean, the really young kids, they're just like, whoop, we're good. But yeah, it takes a little coaxing for even me to get out of, and just, if you've got some knee injuries, or, again, your legs are stuck like this for an hour or two, it makes the getting out a little challenging. So sometimes teamwork is needed.
And warmer water.
And warmer water. Warmer water.
Right. Okay. Well, I think it's time for our ageless advice. But, I almost forgot. What can the viewers do to help you? Is there anything we can do before we move on for that?
Absolutely. They can donate to us. We are, like I said, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. They can visit our website and see where we're renting, or if they want to take a lesson, guided trip.
And the website is localYaks.com, Y-A-K-S, right?
Correct.
And it'll be on the screen as well.
They can volunteer for the Black River cleanup, or if they just want to learn about kayaking in general. Like I said, I love expounding knowledge, especially when it comes to kayaking.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. All right. Now it's time for ageless advice. So let me just ask, Rob, you've got a 2-year-old daughter, so that makes this question, I think, interesting. So what age do you want to live to be? Do you ever think of that?
Yeah, I've thought about it a lot, especially once I got a 2-year-old. I really started doing the math and did a little more deeper soul searching. And, whether it's when you're younger, you live a little more recklessly, and, whatever happens, happens. And now that I got a 2-year-old, I mean, I want to stick it out as healthy as I can. If I'm not doing her any good, if she's suffering watching me for 20 years, I want, like I said, as long as I can productively.
Yeah, a quality life. Okay. High functioning.
Yes.
Out on the water. So, Rob, how can a community help an older adult feel more valued? Any thoughts?
Just respect. I just feel like the respect your elders isn't the mantra that it used to be. I mean, I'm 48 and I still see my dad's friends that I call Mr. So-and-so, and they just respect.
It is different, and I've talked with my friends, and I'm 60, so I'm a little older than you, but we've talked about it too, and then we always wonder, does every generation think that, or do we really have something different going on right now?
Yeah.
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 But I love that idea, is just to keep that in mind whenever we're talking with an older adult. I think this is a good question for you. What is your opinion on community service, Rob?
I love it. I mean, community, it's in the word. Doing community service just helps make your community a better community, a stronger community, a place that everybody wants to be a part of. I think community service kind of has a bad connotation. They think of it as more of a stigma. Anything you do good in your community is community service. I mean, just something as simple as, having a pro-community event is community service.
Well, I think every time you invite someone to go ahead and just call you and ask questions, you don't do that to be paid. And I love that about you. I really love that. You and your wife are doing so much to educate people, which allows people to have the enjoyment of the sport, but also be safe.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right, I love what we talked about this in preparation. What is the secret to aging gracefully?
It's been my theory of life for a long time. Life is like a river. It's very dynamic. It's constantly moving. It's constantly changing. It's very powerful. You can fight it all you want, but it's gonna do what it's destined to do. It's gonna find the weak spot in the chain, and it's gonna create its own path. So you just got to go with it and
go with that
throw
flow.
a little brace stroke down to kind of bring you right back up.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you do in our community. I just love what you have brought to us, and so more people can really enjoy our water. I mean, we are so privileged to live by a body of water like we do.
We are. Mother Nature hasn't been that friendly this year so far, but again, local yaks, you got to be a little crazy to have a kayak business in Northeast Ohio. I mean, you just got to kind of roll with the punches a little bit. And it's really the in-between days that bum me out, because I want to put people out there, but I know the potential for the weather to change. And, sometimes that's hard. When I'm wrong, it's really hard. People just look at me like, why couldn't I go out?
Right.
It's all about, I'd rather you come out tomorrow than
err on the side of caution?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you to you and your lovely wife for all that you do. I so appreciate it, and appreciate you being here today. Thank you, Rob. And to my viewers, thank you as well. And I do want you to stay safe out on the water this year and future years as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Rob and his wife, Stephanie, and both of them would be more than willing to answer your questions and keep you safe as well. If you haven't been to my website, please do. www.aginggracefully.tv, where you can watch this interview over and over if you like, but there's a lot more information there as well. Thank you, Rob.